let's go on to the last two to finish up this conversation, situational and support. Tell us what you see in that area.
Real quick, Amy, before we go on to that, I want to say something about the emotional attachment.
Oh, we missed sure.
Because with that, not only do we have people who tend to shop because it makes them feel better, but we also tend to attach a lot of emotion to things that people give us or things that maybe held a special memory for us. And the challenging thing with those pieces is that usually we place a whole lot more emphasis on the significance of that item than the person that actually gave it to us. One example is we had a client who had a pretty extensive collection of knickknacks, and she had, different ones, like they were precious moments. And so with the precious moments, people had given them to her for different reasons and whatnot, and she couldn't let go of them, even though she even had duplicates because different people had given her the same one. And she, for some reason, couldn't let go of one of them because they had been given to her from different people and that the other people might be offended. It took a while for us to explain to her that, in fact, those people just were thinking of her at the time, but they're not going to be hurt if they don't see that figurine sitting in a box in her attic, which is where they were.
And with that as well, a lot of times those figurines are actually stacked so close together you can't even see them. They're collecting dust. They're not really in one of those big, huge cases that they should be in that's going to inhibit them from collecting that dust. So really, is that how you want to treat that object as well? Is that how that person really wants you to treat that object? So you kind of have to look at it from that way too.
Do you have to deal with the concept of the object holding sentimental value versus having the memory of that person? How do you deal with that? When Aunt Gladys died, and she was my favorite aunt, but she gave me this whatever. I mean, it could be this humongous trophy or something that's just awful.
One of our clients that we dealt with, we had the reason that they had called us was because a grandmother had passed away, and so 50 years of memories and everything built up in this household, and although no one in their family was ready to move in and take on that household, they didn't want to see it just fall by the wayside. So one of the things that we actually did with that group was walk around the house and take pictures of everything. And we were able to post that in a social forum like on Facebook. So everyone in the family was able to then look at that picture and write their favorite memories and comments about Grandma's china or the chair that she always sat in during Christmas and things like that. Then after they had collected all of that material, they then had an auction and sold everything, and then took the money, part of that money, they did a large family reunion and bought everyone photo albums so that they were then able to have all of Grandma's house preserved with everyone's favorite memories in an 8x8 book. So, which was much more tangible than having, you having some of the china and your sister having other pieces and things like that.
What a great idea.
Clever.
That is very clever. That's very clever. Anything else you want to say about emotional attachment, or are you ready to move on to situation and support?
I do have something to say about that. The stress system, if you don't go through that system, everybody has to go through that system basically in order to be able to organize themselves, because there is some sort of stress, as we say, that acronym, in their lives that is going to hold them back or inhibit them from becoming decluttered and organized. So a lot of people miss that mark. They're like, oh yeah, I just need to be organized, and they start rolling with it, but then all of a sudden it's chaos again because they can't stop that shopping because that void is still there. Mm-hmm. And so, or they still don't have that system, or that squeaky drawer is still there because they haven't identified the stress. So that is a key piece in organizing.
Great. And the only other thing with emotional attachment, we do see a lot of people who want to stockpile and stock up for emergencies. And that tends to fall in that emotional attachment, the well, what ifs, or, I have to be prepared. And so you don't necessarily need to have 15 cans of whatever. You can probably, if you only are going to eat them, 2 cans within the next 6 months type of thing. And so we see a lot, with people wanting to be money conscious and things like that, looking at some of the extreme couponing and stockpiling. those are really popular things right now, and they're great avenues to explore, but there is also that fine balance.
Are you going to use it?
Yes,
sure.
Exactly.
You've got it. Are you going to use it?
Sure. So are you ready to talk
Yes.
about situation? Listen, I'm sorry, I keep pushing that. So let's go with situation support. What do you mean by that, and how do you deal with those issues?
So this is your procrastinator. These two the last two S's here, they really are the excuses that people use to put off their organizing. So these are your, I'm going to organize as soon as I get my new job, or as soon as I get some more time, or as soon as I get my new home, or whatever. So that's what situational would be, is if only I had some more space, or those excuses that we tend to use to derail and put off our organizing. With support, it is a little bit more of an external factor, but you can't really change some of the facts. If your significant other is not as organized as you are, you're going to have to work together. That's why finding a system that works for everyone involved is really important, so that you can get that level of support and the buy-in on the project and the goal that you're trying to set. And that doesn't just come from support from other people. It comes from support for yourself. And that kind of gets back into the things that you're talking about, Amy, with some of those stumbling and blocks and barriers that we put up within ourselves. And so support would be not only a spouse, but getting at the root of the problem.
Great. I want to talk more about that, and that leads into my next question. I read somewhere that clutter is the physical manifestation of your emotional baggage. And we've touched on this here and there when we were talking about emotional attachment, but I want to hear your thoughts on how does clutter, which is objects in our life, reflect what's going on with people's mental state? What are they searching for? What's going on with them? What's your experience in that realm?
Clutter is definitely a huge piece of what is going on with somebody's mental state. Absolutely. A lot of times, they say, there is a saying that says, people won't remember what you say, people won't remember what you do, but people will always remember how they felt. And there's a huge feeling piece that people associate with items or things, those collectibles, those china sets, the doll collection. We surround ourselves with the things that will distract us from what's going on with the present, that void in our life, or the piece that feeling we might have with something going on mentally. So it happens again and again, and all of a sudden we went from hardly any clutter whatsoever. We used to be super organized to, oh my gosh, I've got chaos in my life, and I've got chaos in my head, and it's now I've got this physical chaos going on too. Mm-hmm. And it's very much correlated.